When was the last time you took a leap of faith, trusting that everything is going to work out? Do you crave growth, or are you merely content with the status quo? If you want more out of your life, out of your career, and out of your relationships, you are in the right place. Take the leap and discover how to create a life by design rather than living it by default. Real success starts with you. Now here's your host, Colleen Biggs.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Take the Leap. I am your host, Colleen Biggs, and of course, we are back with another amazing guest on Take the Leap. Rikki Smith is with us today, and I guess I've got to ask this question. I'm actually going to a lunch today to be a speaker at the mastermind. It's a smaller group of 20 people, but they always do these executive business luncheons once a month. And I've gone every month for several months, and they've had amazing speakers from NFL coaches come in to men that have been in Major League Baseball. If you're seeing a theme here, apparently the person who is pulling in the speakers loves sports.
Obviously.
And we see a lot of sports. We see a lot of sports professionals come forward and become keynote speakers, motivational speakers after they have been in that industry because they have motivated their players. And that has really been their MO, as a coach. And so as a motivational speaker, it's wonderful for them to get out there and teach a lot of the same principles that they taught while they were coaches. And so we get a little bit of that. So when the gentleman came up to me and said, "Hey, Colleen, we need more women speakers. Would you be willing to speak at our next mastermind?" I said, of course I would. And you always have to be ready, even in the moment. If someone were to say, "Hey, hand you the microphone." My husband asked me this morning, "Are you ready?" And I said, of course I'm ready, because I pretty much talk on the same subject of your network is your net worth. I talk about building social capital through building your network and why that's so important. Rikki and I were just talking about this when we got here to start recording the podcast today. And she was thanking me for all of the connections that I had connected her to and what opportunities and doors that had opened for her. And that's depositing into somebody else's social capital of who they know and who knows them. Now she has a bigger sphere of people that know her, which means they're having conversations about her when she's not in the room. That's going to provide opportunity for her moving forward. Why it's important to be a public speaker is for that specific reason. You get people to know, like, and trust you. They get a little essence of who you are from stage. So we're going to dive into that today and why it's important no matter where you are in your career, corporate America. If you're an entrepreneur, this is important stuff that we're going to be chatting about today, and why it's important for you to be using your voice and speaking up and telling your story and teaching others. And I want to first start by thanking the sponsor of today's show, Phoenix Drone Pros. And at Phoenix Drone Pros, we love what we do and are passionate about each and every drone photography and video shoot. We've been in business since 2015. Our talent and skills shows in the video production we deliver. We offer fast service for commercial real estate, movies, events, and construction site monitoring. We also provide drone virtual tours that are all the rage right now. These virtual tours are great for team building and entertainment. Contact us today at phoenixdronepros.com to schedule your shoot online or get more information. We are now franchising. Reach out for information on how you can purchase your own drone company today. Thank you, Phoenix Drone Pros, for being the sponsor of today's show. All right, let me get back to the amazing Rikki Smith. She was raised in a military family, moving around the country, and the world was part of her life. Meeting people, making friends, and experiencing different cultures gave her a love of adventure and travel. And as a veteran, she saw the need for training and a gap in the ability to speak in public for soldiers moving in to the civilian workforce. And Stratus Training and Consulting was born. She since used her life experience to help others build confidence, organize their thoughts, and tell a story that sells. Everyone, please help me welcome Rikki Smith is in the house.
Hey, Colleen.
Hey, girl. All right. So you were a military brat. Is that what they call them?
That's what we are called,
But
military
you weren't,
brats.
were you?
Sure, we'll go with that. Sure,
She was a
whatever.
troublemaker, y'all. You should see her face right now. And if you're curious, you could just go to our YouTube channel and see the video there as well. But okay, so she is a troublemaker growing up. We just learned that about her. Okay, so as a veteran,
Hmm.
you saw, now you were raised in a military family. Were
Hmm.
you also in the military?
I was. So
Okay.
both my parents were in the Air Force.
Yeah.
Then I went into the Army. I married the cutest Army guy ever, gave
Um,
birth to the cutest Army guy ever. And so, yeah, my husband retired, my son retired, and yeah, legacy.
Army family. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
generational Army family.
Hmm.
So, as a
Yeah.
veteran, you saw a gap in public speaking for soldiers moving
Oh,
into the civilian
100%.
workforce. Explain
Yeah.
that. What
Okay,
happened?
so for anybody that is listening who is a veteran, knows a veteran, or lives in a veteran community, you understand that the military members have a language all their own.
Mm,
It is something that very few people outside of that community not only don't understand, but have no idea how to get into it. Then what happens is these military members, they get out. They leave that safety of that community where everyone understands what you mean, what you're talking about, every acronym on the planet. And
mm,
then you move into a place where nobody gets it. Nobody gets it. And you're now having to explain what you do, what you've done,
mhm.
and now you're somebody's leader. How do you talk to these people now who are different than the people you were raised up with? And there was a huge gap. Oh my gosh.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So it really kind of started with that communication
Yeah.
and giving them the opportunity to be trained in that communication because it is different
Hmm.
in
Completely.
communicating. I
Hmm.
think it would be different for someone who was incarcerated as well, right? Communicating when
Right.
they're released and what
It
that would look like
completely
in
different.
training.
Sort
Mm-hmm.
of even like what you said in your intro with these sports figures. In
Mm-hmm.
the sports arena, whether you are baseball, boxing, soccer, hockey, your language is literally your own. And there are some things that cross over because sports is sports, if you
Yeah.
will. But then you get out into the civilian world, you're no longer doing the thing that you used to do. And I like what you said, these folks are trying to motivate other people. Well, sometimes that style of communication may not cross over well.
Yeah.
Maybe your
I've seen
story,
it.
yeah, we've all seen it. We've all been sitting in those meetings going, oh my gosh, what did that mean? How
Yeah.
did they think that was a good idea to say? Because
Yeah.
in the world that they came out of, it made perfect
You feel
sense
like they're yelling at you and you're like,
all the
I didn't
time.
do anything.
And you're
What's
sitting there
happening
like,
right now?
am I in the wrong room?
Yeah.
But in a lot of those times, these guys and gals that are in these amazing arenas, when they leave them, they're not trained in public speaking.
Mm,
They're trained in how to present themselves. They're trained maybe on how to pronounce words, blah, blah, blah. But to how do you get out here and make this story, these points resonate
mhm,
with a group of people who are not your, if you will, your ideal anymore? Because that
mhm.
thing has changed.
For sure. Yeah, it absolutely has changed. And I'm glad that
Hmm.
we're talking about this today because any training in communication is going to help you communicate better with your loved
Hmm.
ones, communicate better with
Sure.
friends, understand your boundaries, communicate better with an audience.
Hmm.
And why would you say the number one reason, Rikki, that
Hmm.
public speaking is so important?
Because you become the advocate. You are the voice for the voiceless. If you have someone who is telling an amazing story of, say, something as horrific as domestic violence, something like that, or even something as less traumatic, if you will, as business, something in those arenas, you have to be able to communicate it in such a way that one, it makes sense to your audience. Two, they're going to walk away with actionable steps. And three, they are going to be able to translate what you've given them to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not good at translating that information from your brain, which is where all the amazing things happen, to an audience for them to go out and do it, you're basically standing up there and you may as well be saying blah, 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 because that's what it sounds like.
Charlie Brown. Womp womp.
Womp, womp,
Womp
womp,
womp
womp,
womp.
womp. Yeah, all
Okay,
day long.
here's the number one fear in the world. Public
Yeah,
speaking.
it is. Isn't that crazy? Right?
It's
Right
crazy to
before
me
death.
because I literally have had zero fear of public speaking ever. I
Wow.
do think I went through a time where maybe I had a lower self-confidence or self-esteem where I felt like I needed to have something written out
Sure.
compared to where I've gotten today, you know, with the
Yeah.
confidence. But so if the number one fear, there's literally public speaking classes in college to
Yeah,
help people get over this fear. And they say like,
sure.
picture everyone naked. Like
Don't
that
do
is
it.
scary to me. Well, I don't
I
want
have
to see you
clients
naked.
that will come and like, well, I was told to visualize the audience naked. So I tell everybody, do you really
Ugh,
want to see that?
ugh.
That's what you want in your head? You want to see your coworkers, your boss, you want to see your
No,
friend's mom naked? And if
no.
you do, shame on you, that's a whole nother episode. But anyway.
That'll be a different episode that
That'd
Rikki
be a
can
whole nother
talk about.
episode.
But you're right. Nobody wants to see anybody naked. So everybody, please keep your clothes on.
If you don't mind, yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, our minds can only picture what we can imagine. So you couldn't possibly imagine what anyone would look like naked anyway, right?
So
Because
that means you make it up.
yep, you're only
What
taking
the,
visual clips of things that you've seen in the
yeah,
past to try and
yeah.
make it clear into the present. So we know that doesn't work. But it is the number one fear.
It is.
So
It's
I'm
crazy.
assuming people will come to you to hire you because it's a fear and they clam up.
Yeah.
And
And they
then they have
clam up
no
for
idea what to
so
say.
many reasons though. And so when my clients come to me and they're like, I'm scared to speak in public, I'm scared to speak in front of people. We have to literally dig a little deeper and go back because that is just the symptom of a bigger problem. I'm scared to speak in public. Okay, why are you scared? Well, I might forget what I will say. Okay, who told you that you would forget what you'd say? The more questions that I ask, especially in a discovery session, for some reason, there's always tears involved because they go back far enough to find out where someone told them that they weren't good enough. You weren't worthy. Nobody wants to listen to you. You have nothing to say. You are not. Do you see what I'm saying? So once it's not the fear of public speaking, it's the fear of what someone told you, what you believed, and what you now play over and over and over in your head.
Yeah.
So we have to get there first.
Those labels and those words kept me stuck for a long time in corporate America where there was a lot of projecting going on. So let's talk about that real quick for people that don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Projecting is when someone projects how they feel onto you, but they make it about you.
100%.
So someone says, you're not a leader. You're like, that didn't feel right because I lead in my church, I lead in my community, I lead, you know, I'm the director of XYZ outside of my work. But then at my job, you're telling me I'm not a leader and you're like, this association isn't making sense to me. It's the other person feeling less than projecting that on you.
Exactly.
And I don't know why.
Well,
I don't know all the scientific reasons behind why people do it.
But you think about, life be lifing. And if you feel bad, what's the best way to make you feel better? Make somebody else feel bad.
That's right.
And that happens a lot, sadly. And sadly, it comes from either your early childhood, it comes from that traumatic issue with your first horrifying relationship. It comes from, it comes from lots of different places. So once we can drill down to, are you really afraid of talking in front of people, or has someone told you something that you've taken and now that has become your new mantra in your head?
It's your belief.
It is your new
you
belief
believe
system.
it and you become that. Right.
Yeah,
because someone told you that and that label stuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I have a talk that I do and it makes me laugh now. It's called negative BS, which is belief systems. They're negative belief systems, because we've been told this thing for so long that we thought it was the truth. And it may have been a fact, but it wasn't the truth. The fact is, yes, I fall upstairs. The fact is that I shake and I get nervous and I drop things. That's a fact. But the truth is, I do that because people are constantly telling me that I'm going to do it. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, you know? And so one of the things I have to tell my clients is, you know, that person in your head, give them a name and then tell them to shut up. Because it's easier to tell somebody to shut up when they have a name as opposed to this abstract thought that just runs. No, give it a name, call it something. You know, mine's
Yeah.
name is Kwee. It's a whole thing. But Kwee has to sit down sometimes because she tells me things from back then. You're too, this is another thing, the terrible twos. You're too old, you're too short, you're too poor, you're too rich, you're too this, you're too that, you're too whatever. There's that. And then comes the other negative BS. You're not worthy, you're not smart, you have nothing to say, no one, you know. And then you take that stuff on stage with you, you're gonna be scared to death.
Of course. Because you feel immediately the second you get on stage, there's this spotlight on you, everyone's looking at you and everybody's judging you. And that's the number one thing that most people feel. So what if we were to get on stage knowing that we deserve to be there because we were asked to be there or we were paid?
That part.
To be there.
I love that. Somebody thinks that there's more in you than you think you hear in yourself. So they have paid you. Your story is amazing. It is going to change the lives of our attendees. I want you on my stage. So now you have to go back and literally get your mind right and tell yourself, they paid me. They need to hear from me. My story is going to change the world. I can do this. No one can tell the story like I can tell it. And you have to change the narrative. Stop telling yourself what you can do. Stop telling yourself you're super nervous. Tell yourself, not only can I do this, I'm totally going to kill the game. And no, I'm not nervous. I am excited to do this. You know, you gotta change the narrative, but you have to get good folks around you to tell you that yes, you can. Because when you've told yourself that you can't for so many years, it's harder sometimes to say I can. And breaking through that lack of confidence barrier can be a really hard job. But man, get folks in your life. You have an amazing story. Your story matters. Your story is going to change the life of somebody. Like for me, growing up as a military kid, I was always new. I was the newest kid in every classroom. Keep in mind, we were a military family. Somebody was going to be new next week, but I was new this week. So I was really shy and very nervous all the time because I was new. And as I got older, it was in high school that I realized that you can live past a public speaking event. I don't know if your audiences or even you, Colleen, remember. Do you remember public speaking in high school? The class, and you had the one assignment. You had to stand up in front of your class to give whatever presentation. I was going to die physically, not metaphorically. I was physically going to die because the thought of standing in front of people, and I'm new again. But when I realized that I could do this and I didn't die, I'm like, oh, you can live past this? I might be onto something here, you know?
I've always embraced it. I really have. And I don't know if that's a surety in myself or maybe it was more of a boundary, like the boundaries, and it doesn't matter what I'm judged for, what other people think about me, because that doesn't affect how I think about myself. And I don't know how I learned that at a young age, but I've always felt very comfortable on a stage. But I'll tell you this, even if you feel comfortable on a stage, you need to be trained.
Yeah, 100%.
You still need to be trained.
100%.
I've had so many speakers say, I channel through what needs to be said in the moment when I walk on the stage, and that's what I feel to say. Now,
I don't know if your audience can hear the collective eye roll because my eyes are absolutely rolling.
So I'm just going to follow it up by this. If that's working for them, great. But I will tell you, they probably have a lower enrollment or people, you know, connecting with them. I'm not sure. What I do know is there are so many times that I'm driving to the event that I'm going to be on stage or the night before or the morning of that I feel this very strong pull that I need to mention a story or say something during the time that I speak. I do think those are two very different things.
100%.
For me, because when I feel that way, I feel like spirit is telling me someone in that room needs to hear this, and I need to make
100%.
sure you don't skip over that part.
Yeah.
And so I
But
just
you
make
can
it
do that.
Yeah.
You can do that if you have prepared your talk.
Correct.
Your talk is already prepared.
Yep.
And now you're, like you said, you're hearing that the spirit is saying, I need something else needs to change. Well, your basic talk is not going to be different. Your
No.
story is going to may
The
change.
stories are interchangeable.
That's are interchangeable
Yeah.
because the points are going to always be the same.
That's
One
right.
of the things that I hear that kind of makes my heart hurt is when people say, I just want to get there and speak from my heart. Don't do that. Don't do
It's
that.
exactly what I was saying. Yeah, where it's like it just
Don't do it.
downloads. And I'll tell you why, because a lot of times they wind up healing on stage, or
That.
they kind of go off and they don't have a circle to bring them back around to the beginning. You're trying to follow them, and then they talked about one thing and they never came back to it, and you're still hooked on. I do that in books too. When someone says, we'll get to that in further chapters.
In chapter
so
4, yeah.
waiting for the further chapters, down the road for us to get to it. And if someone doesn't ever circle back around on that, which is maybe the one thing I wanted to learn out of the book,
right?
Super pissed off.
See, you're better than me. I will skip to chapter 4 because I need to see this now. That's just my mentality. But when you're dealing with public speakers, you're on stage. And like what you said, you don't need to heal on stage. If you're going to be telling these amazing stories that are going to change the lives, it needs to have changed yours first.
Right.
Speak from a place of healed, not healing.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't want to get up on stage and start emoting, you're crying, you're doing all the things. Because believe it or not, your audience is rooting for you. Yeah. They want you to do well. They're there to get something from you. And if they feel like they have to be your counselor or they're as afraid for you as you are, they're not getting anything out of it. They're going to leave feeling more stressed than when they came in.
Yeah.
And then too, you have to determine what kind of speaker you are, because there are different kinds of speakers. You have the educational speakers, they're data. You have the entertainment speakers, they are hilarious and fun, great for after dinner, perfect. Then you have your motivational speakers, lots of fun, lots of energy, not a whole lot of taking with you. But then you have your transformative speakers. They are fun, they can be entertaining, but they're giving you something to change your life. But if you don't know what sort of speaker you are, you'll just, like you said, start talking. Are you a storyteller? If you are, how are you telling your story? If your story ends with, so what had happened was, and ends with, oh yeah, and then you've lost it, because you've taken people on this roller coaster and you never stopped the ride. There's so much involved in the training to be a great. People think that if you can speak, you are a speaker. Not really. I can sing, but I'm not a singer. Right. And there are singers who are not singers on Broadway, because apparently Broadway singing is the Olympics of singing. So there's that difference. There's more to it than just being able to talk.
So I see a book, Own Your Stage. Tell us about this book, Own Your Stage. Why did you write it?
The reason I wrote it is because as a coach, as a public speaking trainer, I get a lot of questions, a lot of the same questions over and over and over. So I started to write down these tips and tricks in this book. So the book is a short book. It's an easy read. It's called Tips and Myths About Public Speaking. Because like you said, one of the myths is, see everybody naked. Don't do that. Another tip is, what should you eat before you go on stage? We put that in the book. What is a good story? What kind of speaker am I? What should I talk about? Should I charge for speaking? What should I wear? These are questions. And so we put these in the book, and somebody could pick this book up, find the tip that they're looking for, and they can expand on that. It's also an easy way for people to see how I train, what I talk about, and how it can possibly relate to what you want to be or do.
Yeah, I love that. And where can we find this book? Because I'm looking at the links that we have right now, and I want to make sure we've got that link for everyone to click on. Is it on your website? Is it on Amazon?
Yes, it's on my website, stratustrains.com, and it's on Amazon. Just look up Rikki Smith and you'll see 2 books on there, but the Own Your Stage is the latest.
Own Your Stage is the latest. Okay, great. And how do they find you? What is the best way for them to connect with you? How do you prefer?
Yeah, I like that prefer, because if anybody's doing business, we're all on social media. So if you look up Rikki Smith, Rikki Smith, you will find me. But you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. You can also just go directly to my website at stratustrains.com. And everything about me is on there, to include our YouTube channel and everything else.
That's exciting.
It's
Thank you,
fun.
Rikki, for sharing that. And I just want to make a note to everyone today how important it is that we get trained if you are going to be on a stage. I've been on stages for decades and got trained just 5 years ago, actually. It changed my game. Being trained, knowing the comfortability of knowing what you're going to say, having an outline, the preparation that it takes for, making sure you have all the details and everything you need, and showing up and introductions, and just kind of I guess the outline of what it's like to be a speaker. Especially if you're looking to get paid to be a speaker, you don't just fall into this and say, oh, I'm just going to be a paid speaker and that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. You've got to put in the work, just like going to the gym to build muscle. You've got to put in the work with calorie count, right? You've got to put in the work with training, getting the proper training, reading the right books, like Own Your Stage, working with a professional that can help you with that outline and really get you to the point where you know exactly what you're going to say on stage, and it becomes very impactful for the attendees that are there. That gets you from that one gig hired to the next one, because someone
100%.
in the audience is like, oh, we need to have her at our conference, and that would be great. And so usually they breed
they do
opportunities for you. And I want to remind our listeners, you're the only you that's ever been. You're the only you that's ever going to be. So you need to speak up. I was just on a podcast yesterday where the gentleman said, we need more women speaking up and talking and saying and, teaching and sharing their stories and helping other people. There's so many women that are like, oh, not me. I don't have a story. And Rikki and I are here to say, yes, you do. We all have a story, because you got where you are today. And that's your story from the time you were little to the time you got here. And there's been many pivots along the way and pivotal moments in your life that have taught you. So, Rikki, I can't thank you enough as a veteran. Thank you for your service to your entire family, generations. Thank you for your service, and for stepping up to see that there was a demand and a need, and then creating a service out of that to provide other people the resiliency for them to be able to share their story. That's a beautiful thing that God's called you to do. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And it truly is a calling, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate the thanks for our service. It is truly our joy and our pleasure to have served all of us.
I love that. All right, listeners, thank you so much for joining us and staying loyal with the Take the Leap podcast. I'm excited to move on to episode 195 next week. And to all of you, are you a public speaker? And if you aren't, why not? I want you to think about that today, and really ask yourself, why am I not? And is it just lack of training? Rikki Smith is here. So we've got all kinds of ability for you to read books, to be able to hire trainers to help you through this process. So thank you so much, Rikki. And until next week, to all of you, be you and be strong. Bye-bye for now.
We hope you enjoyed our show today, as our guests shared their secrets on designing their life by taking the necessary leaps to expand their influence and attract the right people and clients into their lives. To start these easy steps for yourself, be sure to visit www.colleenbiggs.net/freebies to download the 7 ways to increase your exposure today.